So I spent some time yesterday just making sure I had the right number.
That's good because I put out a request to CSU, UNC, and Front Range Community College for an intern so that I could have somebody here to help look stuff up and then to help with editing and things because this
Right.
is a lot more work than I had anticipated. But I got back from Front Range. You have to pay them like an hourly wage, like minimum wage, and I thought that's not an internship.
Yeah, that's a paid job. That's
That's a
part-time.
job. If I could afford a paid job, I would pay someone.
No, I know
But
how
I
they
can't
work.
afford that, so I need a real live intern. Like, college credit and a stipend should be enough, right? That's what my
Absolutely.
daughter got when she
Yeah.
was in college.
Yeah.
She did marketing.
That's the way it works. I've had tons of interns, even in the last 4 or 5 years, that don't get paid. They just get to be with me and get the knowledge and
Yeah,
move on and get college credit.
yeah, and there's a lot of technical stuff here that I'm doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So
No, I know.
hopefully we'll have a Jamie here, but today you can be Jamie.
I can do it myself.
Do you hear that, Joe Rogan? We need to steal Jamie. But, as I was researching you, as I said, I was quite fascinated.
Sorry.
No, you started on a farm, and then you're a professor, and then you were a program designer. You were also an extension
Not quite in that order, but
but yeah, but I'm just saying all the things and an expert witness.
yep, done a lot of
So,
expert witness stuff.
in the courtrooms,
Yep, been in court. Yep.
you've done all of these things.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we think of farming and ranching, and that doesn't always go together with academics. Those seem like really separate worlds.
So I started out, and I'll just start from the beginning. Is that okay? So I
That would be
started
great.
out.
I was gonna ask you to take me to Post.
You don't want to go there.
You don't wanna go to Post?
No.
Post is a town in Texas, by the
We
way.
can take you. But so I grew up in a little town of 3,000 people in Post, Texas. That's the name. It's about 35 miles southeast of Lubbock. And so the Great Plains actually starts between Lubbock and Post. And it's flat from there, but right before you get into Post, it breaks off, and then it's all kind of broken in ranch country from then. The further south and west you go, so it's kind of a transition point of terrain in Texas, and kind of a unique place. But I grew up there, had typical kind of high school life. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom raised us as best she could. I have 2 siblings. But while I was there and in high school, it's all ranch land and farming.
Mhm.
And I really don't like farming. It's really boring sitting on a tractor. So I did the cowboy thing, and I actually cowboyed in some of the most historic ranches in Texas, like 4.6s, pitchforks, some of those you see on TV and movies
So, like,
now.
real cowboy with the
So, like,
hat and
did the
out
real
with the
deal, yeah,
tents and the
yeah,
mess kits
yeah.
and the whole
I told Shirley, I said, "I need to wear a hat to this because, this is what we're talking about." But,
I've got one upstairs. I
she
can
got
bring it
after
down.
me. No, it's good. But what I did learn doing all that is I didn't wanna stay there, and keep doing that because I worked with a lot of these old cowboys that were just broke down. They were dead broke in their 50s, had no retirement, had most of the time a broken marriage, and I'm like, "Man, I don't wanna live like that."
Mhm.
So I ended up going to college, went to San Angelo State, and that's where I met my wife, Shirley, and, did animal science degree, an undergrad degree, and, I squeezed a 4-year education into 5.5 years. Um,
That's
it wasn't
that's
it wasn't that I
respectable.
it wasn't that I liked school, but I basically failed enough courses along the way that in order to graduate, I had to go back and take them over, and that's what took the extra time, if I'm honest. But I tell people all the time, if you get out of undergrad with a 2.5, you can still have a 4.0 and a PhD. It doesn't mean you're
Mhm.
dumb. It just means you didn't do work very hard. So
No, I
right,
had the same experience. I mean, I didn't have a 2.5, but I think I graduated with, like, a 2.9. 3, like, right in there with my undergrad, and then I went on to
yep,
do a couple of master's degrees with
right,
real high GPAs
yep.
because
It's
I
just
grew up. It was
it's a piece of
I knew what I wanted
motivation.
to do.
Part of it's motivation,
Yeah.
part of it's growing up, right? Maturity. But um, I went to Del Rio, Texas, was our first job. Shirley and I got married, went to Del Rio, and Del Rio's right on the border with Mexico. We'd go into Mexico 6 or 7 nights a week, have dinner, because you could have dinner for 2 of us for like $6. And that's with a couple of drinks. So we would just do that. And then there was a family down there that owned a 100,000-acre ranch, and they came to me and asked me if I would be interested in managing it. So we took that job and did that for 4 years,
How many acres?
100,000.
100,000
Yeah.
acres. Put that in perspective for people. What does that look like, 100,000? Like,
100
if you
100
think
it's 100
Yellowstone,
100 square miles.
100 square miles, that's a lot of miles.
Yeah. It was
How
huge.
much cattle is on a 100,000 acre ranch?
So and we'll probably get into this a little later, right?
Yeah.
About ranching and how do you determine how many cattle? And it's how much land, how much grass how much forage, how much food will that land produce
Mhm.
for animals? And that ranch, we only had about 300 cows.
Okay.
But we had, because it wasn't great grass, the right type of grass for cattle, it was more for sheep and goats.
Okay.
So we had 50,000 sheep and about 40,000 goats. So that was what I did for 4 years. And I kind of came to the same realization. We had one daughter by then, and we're about to have another one. And Cheryl and I just looked at each other and said, you know what, we got to get out of here. Or we're going to die here. So that's when we decided to go back to grad school at A&M. But I was going to go to vet school. But because I did a production option as an undergrad, I didn't have all the prereqs for vet school. So they said, well, you're going to have to take these organic OChem and some other stuff. And I said, okay. And since we already had the two girls, I was worried that something might happen and I need to get a job. So I needed to have something to show for it. So I made it into a master's degree, the prereqs for vet school, and some other classes to do a master's degree. So I actually have a master's in ruminant nutrition.
And what?
Ruminant nutrition. It's cows.
Ruminant nutrition?
It's a type of animal digestive system.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's cows, basically anything with a split hoof except pigs. And so we manage their nutrition a little bit differently because it's a different system. But so I did the nutrition degree, master's degree, and then I applied to vet school again. And it would be a great story. But another group at A&M came and said, the meat science group said, hey, we got this project. If you want it, we can get you out in about 18 months with a PhD. And I said, well, I'm already applied to vet school. Can I wait? And they go, no, we got to know today. And so I took it because we had the two girls and I just needed to get done. And it would make a better story if I got something from the vet school that said I'd been denied, but I was actually accepted. So, but I'd already taken the PhD and I don't regret doing that at all.
Mhm.
I don't regret how that shook out. But I taught at a small school in Huntsville, Texas, about 50 miles away from College Station because we didn't want to relocate yet. Did that for 2 years and then applied for a faculty position at CSU. And that's what brought us to Fort Collins.
Okay. And that was
2001.
Okay.
25 years ago. Because our youngest son is 25 and he was a tiny baby when we moved here.
Right.
Yeah.
I did that part. I knew. I knew Sawyer
Yep.
was a little bitty baby.
Yeah. And so I taught at CSU for 16 years. I had tenure, all that stuff. Did primarily nutrition and reproduction and some meat science work as far as research and publications and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I did, but I'm still have all these ranching roots and farm and animal care, and I think that's what makes me unique from a lot of people is I have the practical experience, the science, and then some people management kind of skills as well that I did when I was at CSU. I managed several different programs at CSU, started a few graduate programs, spent some time as a department head for a little while. I mean, I've done a lot of different things, so it's been interesting to this point. And currently I work for a large feed additive company that's based out of France. And we're working my job is to take the products they have and can we more efficiently produce beef utilizing some of their products.
What kind of products?
Mostly amino acids. So currently in ruminant nutrition, we balance rations for crude protein. Well, crude protein doesn't tell you anything about the protein quality that you're given in there. It's just a measure of nitrogen. And we just assume that all the nitrogen that we measure is attributed to protein. And that's not always true. Primarily it is, at least 16%. So we kind of have some relative understanding of that. But as we move forward in our world, we've got to do a more efficient job producing protein for people because there's going to continue to be more and more people and less space to produce that protein on. So if we can do a more efficient job with nitrogen utilization, which is a component of protein, we can do a better job of raising protein for people more efficiently with less harm to the environment.
So you're feeding the animals a different kind of food that produces this different so they grow into a different kind of protein?
No, it may be the same kind of food, but we're able to analyze and look at it and say, okay, instead of using this, maybe if we use a car example, this goes back to being a professor, right? You can have these examples. So if you step on the gas on your car and it goes, you can go as fast as you want, it's going to burn a certain amount of gas. Well, can we do something to that car to make it burn less gas? or need less gas to go that fast. So that's what we're trying to do, is figure out if we can utilize amino acids, like in a car, to get better gas mileage. There's a lot of things they do, right? Make it more efficient. Maybe it's more viscous oil. Maybe it's things like that, less wear and tear, different design of the engine. That's what we're trying to do, is be more precise in our measurements of what we're putting into that animal. They're still going to make the same protein, but can we make that protein with less inputs?
So what would the inputs be?
If we can do it with amino acids versus this crude protein measurement, I think we can be more precise in how we do that.
Right. So how do you get the amino acid in them?
They eat it just like they do everything else.
So
right? And so what we do is currently we really don't measure it. So you can take any plant that you have, and I can send it to a lab, and they can do all this analysis. They can tell me what the amino acids are. And with cattle, primarily, we feed them a lot of silage and hay. So we can send those in. We can get back an amino acid profile, and we know what the needs are for that animal. And can we go back and tweak those, look at those amino acids, and not add in we can add in less other ingredients to try to get us up to that protein level, because we know where they're meeting the amino acids. I just feel like that crude protein number is antiquated.
So you're not manipulating the food. Nope. You're manipulating how much of what kind of food.
Correct.
Okay. Correct. That's where my brain was a little stalled.
In that food, what really get down to the minute details of what's in that food. Because you can eat yogurt. Is it all 100% yogurt? No, you turn that thing around, and if you go in the grocery store, there'll be yogurts that have 20 grams of sugar. There'll be yogurts that have 0 sugar, right? And so how do we evaluate what those ingredients are for the best health of the animal, and make sure those ingredients are the best and the most efficient at producing protein?
Okay. So that makes more sense in my brain.
Sorry, finally got there.
That's okay. It took I hope y'all got there quicker than I did. I took the long way. But you were also a county extension agent.
We did. We were. That was the first job in Del Rio, was as a county extension agent, and that's part of the land grant university system in the United States, where you're kind of an educator in a county for all things agriculture.
Right. So you work with the university system, but you go out into rural America and you kind of help educate people who are out in rural America that don't understand you bring that knowledge.
Yeah, it's supposed to be kind of the teaching arm of the university out in the country.
But you have to have really good people skills to be able to do that. It's like not everybody can do that.
I probably didn't, but you either develop them or you don't stay very long, one or the other.
Well, I know you, and I know you have really good people skills.
Now I do, but I didn't.
I bragged about you being really funny, though, so you can throw humor in here any minute. Just so you know, don't hold back.
Okay. Well, we had some facts. We had to get some facts done. But
don't be shy. Don't be shy. Okay. So you were all these things: county extension manager, ranch manager, professor, all of these things. So that it sounds like that wasn't really your plan. Like one step, just kind of it just kind of rolled into
and that's what. Yeah, and I think you have to. Sometimes when I give talks and I kind of give a real quick overview of where I came from, and you wanted something funny. So my best joke with about Del Rio, Texas is if you were going to drive to hell, Del Rio's the last place to get gas, because it's just past there. But no, yeah, there was never really a true plan. I just feel like, we were willing to step out and take a few risks here and there. And going to grad school was crazy. My family was losing their mind, especially my mom. She still says to this day, I took 10 years off of her life, but she's already 83. So I'm like, well, you're welcome. But it was just a matter of taking a risk and then deciding if that risk was worth it. And it has been 100% worth it, because it has opened so many doors and opportunities for things for me to do.
I think I'm a big believer in risk taking. I think that if you don't take risks, your life gets stagnant and you don't go anywhere. And then what? I think you have to take risks. And
I agree. And I talk to people all the time. I was talking to a guy that works at CSU still. He's in facilities, and he said, man, I'm just, they're cutting budgets this year. There's not going to be any raises, and I don't know what I'm going to do. And it looks like this is my future now. And he's in his early 30s. And I said, you got to do something different. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, is you get comfortable. And then you have to choose, do I want to stay comfortable over here? And am I okay? And can I accept this life for forever, for the rest of my life? Or am I willing to take a risk for something better?
Right.
And we've always told our kids, what's the worst thing that can happen? What is the absolute worst? And I have 2 kids that go to law school, one that's a policeman, and another one's a trauma nurse. And so I feel like they've gone for it.
Yeah. And I think that's the best way to look at it. What is the worst? Because once you tackle the worst thing in your mind, then the fear is gone. It's like, well,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing. I can handle that.
Right.
Then I'm okay.
And that's
Then
what
I'm
we've
good.
always, Shirley and I've always tried to do is say, you know what? And when they would come to us with something, well, I'm just scared to go to law school. I'm scared to apply to law school. I said, what's the worst thing that can happen applying to law school? You
You
don't
get
get
turned down?
in. Then you go get a job. You go do something else, or you figure out, at least you know where your shortcomings are, and you go study for that and then get in.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but it's always, what's the worst thing that can happen is kind of what we tell them.
That's the motto.
Yep.
Yeah. What is the worst thing?
Because like me going to grad school with 2 little girls, what's the worst thing that can happen? I have to get a job. Well, I already had a job. I know I have to have a job. So if that's the worst thing, this is really not a risk.
Yeah, because I already have one of those
Right.
job things.
Right. And yeah.
Yeah, that's I'm loved my whole life taking risks. My kids are risk takers because they watched their mother take risks, and
Yeah. I think our kids have done the same. Yeah.
I think it's important. I think it's a good model for your kids.
Well, and I think the motivation has to be right too, as well. I mean, what's your motivation for taking that risk? Is it to better yourself? Is it, I mean, if you take Shirley, my wife, for instance, she risked
Oh my
stepping
gosh.
into politics, right? And
Mhm.
her motivation was not to become important,
Right.
not to be a power thing, but her motivation was, I just want to give back to my community.
Mhm. And she wanted to make her community better.
Yeah.
And she saw the direction her community was going. She didn't like it.
And it's a huge risk, though. I
Yeah.
mean, and I feel bad for anybody that runs for office because you put your heart and soul behind it, and at the end, somebody's going to lose.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Always.
Yep.
Always.
Yep.
Sadly.
I know. I know.
But there are positives along the way, right?
Yes,
You meet people,
absolutely.
there's influences, and then you can influence in a different way, even if the election doesn't go your way. There are always positive outcomes,
Yep. Yep.
even if it's not the outcome that we might have wanted.
But it takes work to figure that out, figure out where that spot is.
Well, and it's
where it
heartbreaking.
goes. And,
It takes a minute to
no
get
doubt.
past all of that.
Yep. She's still working on it.
Yeah. She's doing a good job. She's got, for those of you who don't know Shirley Peel, she's amazing. And she's got this whole new Facebook thing going on where she's trying to bring people together for kind of tabletop conversations on issues that can be polarizing, but bringing people together to have civil conversations about polarizing issues. And I really have a lot of respect for her for that. She's doing really good things. She's an amazing woman. So
Trying to find her spot.
yep, find her on Facebook. Shirley Peel, P-E-E-L, same as his last name, P-E-E-L. But and you guys have been married forever.
37 years.
37 years. 4 kids, 37 years.
That's a risk. A risk for Shirley. When I was teaching class, I used to tell students all the time, ladies, be very careful who you say yes to, because you might look up 37 years later and he's lost all of his hair and he's different. And so be careful who you say yes to.
But he might be working in France and saving animals.
Could
so
be.
You never know.
You never know what he might be doing.
France and animals, that's a good combo. France is one of my favorite countries.
I enjoy going there. I don't want to stay there very long. But
it is one of my favorite places.
Yep, I agree. It's fun. It's fun to visit.
Yeah. So for people out there who never really thought about their beef and how it got from the pasture to the plate, what does that process look like from pasture to plate?
I try to work with people a lot about and kind of educate where your food comes from, because I think so many people think, well, I just go to King Soopers around here. It might be H-E-B if you're in the South, if you're in Texas for
Publix.
sure.
We love Publix.
Publix be one. But so many people think that it just shows up there. And then somebody at some point is taking care of those animals to get them there. And when we talk about beef, there's a lot of cattle in the United States, and they're scattered out from one coast to the other. And the primary purpose is to provide protein for people in the form of beef, right? And so it's a challenge, and can be hard to do, and it's hard work, and it takes a lot of time, and it can be heartbreaking at the same time. But currently in the U.S., there's 900,000 cattle operations.
That's
and
a
that's,
lot.
That comes from
I didn't think there were
comes
that
from
many.
a USDA study. So there's about 28 to 29 million beef cows in the U.S.
How many?
28 to 29 million, depending on drought and kind of fluctuations.
How much beef do we eat in the United States? I eat a lot.
Per capita consumption of beef is about 50 to 60 pounds a year.
Per person.
That's on average.
Wow. You take the vegans and the vegetarians out of that.
Well, I think I probably eat close to
person.
100 pounds, so I offset at least one vegan.
Yeah. Well, we eat, between the two of us, we eat about a half a cow a year.
Yeah, you're probably right in that
Yeah.
in that category. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But it is, and it's what I did, for a long time, and enjoy doing. It's a great lifestyle. That it's a hard way to make a living. If you didn't inherit the land, if you're having trying to make land payments, it's almost impossible currently to be able to do that. So what's happened is in the beef world is cow calf. There's different sectors of the beef industry. So you have cow calf, and then you guys have guys called stockers or growers that they buy those calves, take care of them, and then you have this feedlot phase where they go in. So those are the different sectors, and those cattle move through those sectors, and the feedlot's kind of the last place. And then you have the packers or the processors, so they're the ones that package it up and get it to your grocery store.
Okay. Can you explain each one of those levels?
So cow calf is predominantly the most operators. So it would literally be an upside down triangle. So at the top you have the cow calf people, and there's a bunch of them. If you drive around the United States, you'll see cows out grazing. Well, that's nearly always somebody's cow calf operation. They're raising, and when we say cow calf, that means you're going to have mature cows. You put bulls with them, you raise calves, and then those calves go to market. That's how your income is on pounds of calf. You're selling pounds. And so that's kind of how it operates. And then the grower stocker sector, and it's primarily Flint Hills of Kansas, Oklahoma, and the Panhandle of Texas where they do that. There's quite a bit in the Southeast, like in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia, where they do some of that. But these are young calves that they buy from these cow calf producers and bring them in and take all the risk, kind of get them over being sick. And it's kind of like when you take a little kid to school the first time. They get sick because they're exposed to all these new things. So these calves have been raised on these cow-calf
You poor
operations.
little moo cow.
They've never
Sick all the
commingled with
time.
anybody else. They're like, they're like homeschool kids. They've been all out there for the whole time. And I'm not making fun of homeschool. We homeschooled our kids, but we kind of joked about it. You bring them in, they're kind of feral sometimes, but that's not everybody at all. But so these calves come in, and then you commingle them with calves from everywhere else. And so then you have all these new pathogens, they get sick. And so these stocker growers get them over all that, and then usually have some kind of a low cost forage available. And like in the Panhandle, Oklahoma, and the Flint Hills of Kansas, it's usually some wheat or some rye or a wheat rye cross called triticale. And they just graze usually during the wintertime, and then in the spring they'll send them to the feedlot. So that segment is kind of unique and maybe smaller. And so as you start to refine down the number of people, there's not nearly as many of those stocker growers. And then you get to the feedlot sector, and it's even smaller. Most of those are centered around the Panhandle of Texas, where they grow a lot of corn. It's always been crazy to me because the upper Midwest grows all the corn, and they just ship it all to Texas to feed these cattle. The climate's a little better; it gets hot, but not much cold. So the feedlot sector is fairly large, and all of those cattle go through there, feed them a high starch grain because Americans really like the flavor of some beef with a little bit of fat in it, a little bit of grease in there. So when you cook it, it's juicy and flavorful. So the way to get that with a quick period of time is use these high starch rations.
Okay. Now, my understanding is when you feed them the corn and the high starch rations, it ups those omega-6s in the meat, and that omega-6, then you're kind of out of whack. And omega-6s, when you have a higher omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, that's not good for you.
That is not good for you. That's when you get high cholesterol.
Right, right. So what's the balance then when you're buying your meat? What should you be looking for?
Everybody has their own preference, and a lot of it comes down to lifestyle, and the cholesterol piece is genetic as well. I mean, like my mom, she's had high cholesterol her whole life. I've never.
I don't know if
it.
y'all can hear my dog barking. Usually this blocks that out, but if you can, I'm sorry.
Somebody's out.
So,
yeah, so it's all somebody's preference, and then there's some genetic piece with cholesterol, but it's also your lifestyle. I mean, if you're very sedentary and you're eating a lot of red meat with a lot of fat, you're going to have a problem. If you're eating a lot of red meat with a lot of fat, but you're super active, you're not going to have a problem.
Okay.
So everything kind of has to be in a balance for sure.
Because I know, like with the meat that we buy, and I buy from Cane Meats, so and I love Cane Meats in Colorado. They finish with with corn
Yeah, so there's all different ways.
or something. So if I got that wrong, Mindy Kane, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure they finish with something, with some kind of grain.
The fastest way, and because it's efficient and it's all a cost factor. So the fastest way to get a calf to a harvest weight is to put them on these high starch diets and just push them as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And we get 3.5, 4 pounds per day of gain on those cattle on those kind of diets. What a lot of people do is leave them out on grass longer. And then maybe the last 30 days, they put them on corn. Because if they're just out on grass, a lot of people don't like seeing yellow fat. There's nothing wrong with it. It just has high beta carotene, which turns into vitamin A from all of that grass they've been eating. So it's just a little bit different color. You put them on corn for 30 days, that clears right up. It's all bright white. And then we'll start to put what we call intermuscular fat in between those muscle fibers. And that's what makes your meat tender.
Okay. See, I'm learning so much. I didn't know all that.
Yep.
And those weren't even in my notes, those questions. But so you focus on nutrition and production and all of those good things. What do people misunderstand about the whole modern cattle production? What do we get wrong?
I think in Colorado, the big thing that I run into the most is people think that ranchers are just raping and pillaging the land for their own benefit. Well, if you stop and think about that logically, and let's say you're a rancher and you have cows and you are 100% dependent on that land to produce food for your cows. What would be the benefit of you just taking it all and destroying the land?
There'd be no benefit there because my life would be gone.
It's just crazy to me. So all of the ranchers I know and all the ranchers I work with, and I still, that's one of the things you didn't have on your list. I still consult with ranchers all over the United States, a couple outside the United States, and some in Mexico. But the thing is understanding where's that balance and taking care of that land so that it's still productive and you can still keep cows on it. And we call that understanding the contribution of that land to be able to provide enough forage for how many cows. Because you can mathematically calculate how much forage a cow needs per day to stay alive and do well. You can also calculate on a given area how much that land is capable of producing. The problem is we can't control rain. Obviously, in Colorado this winter, we can't control snow because we have none, which I don't mind. Because coming from Texas, I hate shoveling snow, so I don't mind that at all. In fact, if we move, I'm going to put a snow shovel in the back of my truck. In every gas station I stop at, when somebody asks me what is that, I'm going to stop and get a house there. So I really hate shoveling snow, but so it's moisture is a big thing, and what I'd see a lot of times with people that I work with is I will go on their ranch and look at the resource and then look at their cattle. And then I sat down with them and I said, okay, tell me how you make decisions on how many cows you keep. Well, my wife and I want to make $100,000 a year. And we know that to be able to make that and be able to net that cash, we've got to have 200 calves to sell. So we keep 600 cows. And that way we know we're going to have 200 calves to sell. We're going to have some that we keep back to replace the older female cows. And then we're going to sell a few. So that's kind of how we know how many we have to have. And I'm like, what if I told you your land will only provide for 100 cows? Oh, well, we can't do that. No, I'm not willing to do that. Well, then you're going to have to go buy more land. So people try to match their lifestyle or their income, their desires for that, and sometimes the land won't support it. My sister, bless her heart, she had her best friend in Texas that she grew up with, recently died of cancer. Tragic. She was the only child. Her parents were both dead. She left a 6,000-acre ranch to my sister. Her parents, who I grew up with, and I cowboyed on their place. I know every inch of that place, and I've been helping her try to figure this out. And she literally told me last night, well, I can't live on that. And I said, that's why Jenna's dad had a job outside. That's why Jenna had a job. You've got too many cows. Well, I can't cash flow this place on 100 cows. I went, you're going to have to, because the land will not support more than that. And so that's where I see the problem. And And if you're going to stay in the business, you got to figure out, okay, my land will provide this much.
Mhm.
I got to figure out if I want more income, then you're going to have to go get a job in town. And that's kind of what when I told you all those different beef producers, and a lot of them, right, different operations, probably 2/3 of those have jobs outside of the farm or the ranch.
That's gotta be really difficult to run a ranch and have a full-time job.
It is very difficult, and my sister's learning that.
I can't imagine that. I can't imagine running a ranch and having a full-time job.
Well, you gotta figure it out,
Yeah.
or don't
Because you
ranch.
you
And
still have to hire people to help you with the ranch, right? I mean,
it
are these
depends on
people,
how
are they
many.
solo
It depends on
ranch?
how many there are, and there's some things you can do to manage, do a lot of it yourself. But
Mhm.
yeah, you do have to hire some outside help occasionally, especially when you're working calves and that kind of thing. But that's the misunderstanding I think is for most people is that ranchers are all rich. Some are. But the ones I know that are rich has nothing to do with cows. It has to do with those black cows that go up and down that are sitting out there on that ranch pulling oil out of the ground.
Mm.
Those are the guys
Those
that are
metal ones.
those big metal ones, yeah, that don't move and don't have to feed.
Mhm.
Uh, those are the guys, mostly rich ranchers I know. That's their primary source of income, not the cows.
And are those oil wells on their property?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So they can sustain their ranch by the
Yeah.
oil that they drill.
Yeah. And so not all ranchers are rich. Some of the best ranchers I know are just barely get by one year to the next. Barely get by.
It's kinda like farmers.
It is a lot like farmers.
But we subsidize ranches like we subsidize farmers?
There are a lot of subsidizing programs, not necessarily on the cattle themselves, but on infrastructure. The NRCS will provide some funding, some grant money to
And
do
what's RCS?
pipelines, National Resource Conservation Service,
Okay.
NRCS.
NRCS. Okay.
USDA has some grants as well. So there's some things you can apply for to help offset some of that. Personally, I am 100% anti any subsidy.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, it creates a false economy. How do you make management decisions when your economy is not real?
Mhm.
In the market's not real and how it's being driven. I mean, that could be a whole nother
I've
podcast on
got a book
subsidy.
upstairs, I think it's Economics 101 or something like that, and it talks about the fallacies of subsidies and how they really damage our economy, and
Oh, I
it's not a good idea at all.
100%
I
agree.
can't talk to you about the ins and outs of it because I read it and it makes sense and then it leaves my brain. So all I can say is it doesn't make sense, but I'd have to pull the book off the shelf
Well,
to
when I
get
was
the ins and
managing
outs
that
of it.
ranch in Del Rio, we were the national number one in the national wool and mohair subsidy program. We got more money from that program than anybody else in the nation. I didn't even know about it till I started managing that ranch, and literally we got a $3 million check one year. And I started looking into it, and it was all put in place at the end of World War II because to make soldiers' uniforms, they almost ran out of wool in the United States. So they created a subsidy to encourage more ranchers to have more sheep to raise more wool. Well, no one kind of looked at it and said, well, we don't make uniforms out of wool anymore. We have all these other really high end fibers and fabrics that
Mhm.
are warmer and easy to care for, and they don't stink and they're not heavy and all those kinds of things. So there really wasn't that demand, and literally the United States government was buying this wool. So here's how that program worked. If I raised somebody somewhere, I don't know who it was, would determine how much it cost to grow 1 pound of wool. Well, let's say they came out and said it was $6. Well, if I went and sold my wool and it brought $2 a pound, the government sent me a check for $4 a pound for all the wool that I sold. And I could do the math, and it cost me less than $2 to raise that pound of wool on this ranch. Less than $2. I have no idea who brought up the $6. But anyway, I started looking at that, and I didn't like it, but I needed it. Helped with the management, helped with the
Mhm.
income of the ranch, right? But what I started doing is looking around in that area, and I'm like, you know what? All this does is perpetuates bad managers staying in business.
Yeah.
Well, they cut out the subsidy, and I kind of saw it coming, and so I had diversified what we were doing and had moved a bunch of sheep to something else, and so we were doing some different things, and we weren't affected very much, but there was a lot of ranchers in that area went out of business. They should have been out of business. They weren't good managers. They weren't good ranchers in the first place.
Right.
That $4 a pound subsidy kept them in business. And so that created a false economy for them to live in that they were able to make a profit and they shouldn't have been. They should have been gone. So anyway, that's my soapbox on
That's
subsidies.
just
I don't like them. I don't like them at all.
no, I'm with you. Everything I've read, and I've never worked in a subsidized business unless you consider education subsidized.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
We
not so
probably better
much.
leave that alone. I'll be in trouble with you and Shirley.
But oh no, we're probably on the same page with education.
Probably.
But getting back to things that we don't, here's something I don't understand, and this is probably this is a polarizing topic, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. But the whole cows and flatulence and the environment. Did the ranchers get harassed here in Colorado for that?
Uh, Currently, not a lot.
Okay, good.
Um, Not with any bite.
Okay.
They get harassed, and you hear a lot of talk, and there's a lot of pushback from the legislature at the state, but nobody's really put any laws into place yet that would challenge the amount of methane that's being excreted.
Okay.
So one of the things
Isn't that a nice way to say that? The amount of methane that's being excreted.
that's being released into your environment, and it depends on what camp you're in about whether methane is damaging for the environment, whether it's really contributing to a change in our climate. Um, I yeah, well, that's a whole nother debate that we could probably do another time as well.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's
Yep.
a really big one. So you're rancher, then you're a professor, and you're building this career, building bridges kind of between the academic world and the ranching
Mhm.
world. And then you took all of this knowledge that you had and you created a graduate program.
We did at CSU. There was some interest from ranchers in the state of Colorado saying, you know what, my kids go there, they don't learn about ranching, they come home and they may be an agronomist, they might be an accountant, but you guys aren't helping them with when they come home. And so I had no power to change the undergraduate curriculum. It is what it is, and it's all about the university has designed the undergraduate curriculum to make money.
And this is an agricultural
Animal
degree,
science. It was in
animal
animal
science.
science.
Okay.
Yeah, and so um, these ranchers that I knew around the state that I had worked with and had their kids in class, they're the ones that came and said, "Hey, we need another option for our kids." And so what I did is kind of went back and said, "Okay, how many? You need 30 credits for a master's degree." And so if you do all 3 credit courses, that's 10 classes. I thought, well, 10 classes, that's something. Where we miss the boat at the university most of the time is you can get a very good, well, a pretty good disciplinary education. So I could give you a really good education in animal science. Is a ranch all animal science? No, there's economics, there's people, there's animal science for sure, there's range management, there's some hydroecology kind of stuff. I mean, how do you deal with water and running water in the state of Colorado and streams and all that, riparian areas, how do you manage all that?
Riparian areas?
Yeah, like where streams are.
Okay.
Sorry.
Technical talk.
It's the grass that grows up next to a stream, and
Okay.
it needs to stay there. It's a management piece, but nowhere at the university were we doing that. And so I sat down and with some other faculty, and faculty wouldn't believe me that we needed a multidisciplinary approach to this.
So you got a little pushback.
I got a lot of pushback, yeah. And basically, the university administrator said, "Well, we don't do it that way. That's not how we do college." And I said, "But this is what our clients are asking for." And so there was a guy in dean's office at the time that he was convinced, and he was actually a soil scientist, and he was convinced that we needed this approach. So he actually went to bat for me on several things. So we created 10 new classes. 3 were animal science, 3 were ag business, and 3 were range, and that's only 9. So the 10th one was policy. Had a really good government policy guy that taught that class, and because I just felt like it was important for students to understand that they can manage everything perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a governmental policy that inhibits that or has some kind of a negative impact, then it wouldn't matter. And this class was designed to help them. Where do you engage in that process of policy making? And so that I felt like that was important. So that's what the 10 classes. That program started probably 2004, and it's still going.
Now, are you still teaching?
I am actually I'm actually back to being the administrator, and I do teach 3 courses in that program still. It's 100% online now, so we have
Okay.
students all over the nation that do
Wow.
it, and there's about 25 to 30 a year that go through the program. We did it on campus for a while, and this was another unique thing that I had a lot of pushback on. When I was in graduate school, I felt like they wasted half of my day
Mhm.
because you'd go in the morning, go to school, go to class, and then if you didn't have a research project going on, you were kind of the way our graduate school worked in animal science, you went and helped other people with their projects or you had a job. But if you were on assistantship from the university, then they expect you to be, whoever professor was paying you that expected you to be kind of at their beck and call. So you really couldn't go get another job. So I felt like if I could have gone to school all day, I would have done that if I could have gotten out in half the time. So to me, a master's degree should not take 2 years. So, and then I felt like the current model where you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday did not allow for continuity to kind of keep your brain engaged in that subject matter.
Mhm.
And so what we did is every 3 credit course has 45 contact hours. That's the university requirement. So I said, okay, what if you went to school for 6 hours a day? That's just a little over 7 days. That's probably pushing it. So we did 5 days or 10 days of course. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday of one week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday the second week. You went for 5 to 6 hours a day for 2 weeks. You were done with that course. And then we had a week off, and then you started the next course. So you could do all your coursework in a year.
That's like those, condensed summer courses
Yep.
that they do.
Super popular. But you're only in that class. You don't have to go spend your time somewhere else. And if something big happened, and I had one of those classes and something big happened, I I could just put them in a van and we go look at it because they didn't have a class conflict with another course. We could just say,
Mhm.
shoot, I'm gonna get a van tomorrow and we're gonna go to Alt and look at some cows in a feedlot. Whatever. I mean, we could do that. Hugely successful, graduated about 120, 125 students in that really condensed, intense format. Then we had a dean turnover. He decided that there wasn't enough money coming back to support the program, so he could shut it off. So when he did that, I pivoted. We'd already started doing online because I could see that was a need and it was a way for us to even grow a little bit further. So
Mhm.
it's still 100% online now.
Very good. Well, now you can't do
Yeah.
field trips, though.
Yeah,
That's a
I no
bummer.
field trips.
That's
I can demand they go do a field trip on their own, but they kinda miss out.
well, you could do a camera. They could take you FaceTime on a field trip.
Well, I've done that with my courses and yeah, it's just an inefficient system, really, the whole way they do college, but and that was my effort to try to do a better job with students' time and try to fulfill and fill what they want. For some reason, I feel like education still should have some customer service.
You think?
I That was just my
That would
feeling, yeah, but
be a nice thing. Education has changed a lot, Craig, since you and I were
oh, no doubt.
in school. I know my kids' experience was very, very different than my experience.
Right.
I felt like professors really cared about the education part
Oh, yeah, for sure.
and not all of the extraneous
Well, I just had a parent on
part.
Tuesday, expressing frustration with her students in engineering at Colorado State, and he's really frustrated because he says, "My professors don't care whether I learn anything or not." And I said, "Well, here's the problem with what I found at the university. There's 2 kinds of professors. There's a professor that genuinely wants to help students be better when they walk out the door, and for me personally, I felt like if you were not more valuable when you left my class than you were when you came in, then I failed you, and that's on me. But so you have professors that are like that, and then you have other professors that have never been in the real world, they've never had a job, they've only been in academia, and their sole purpose in having a class is to make sure you understand how dumb you are and how smart they are, and that you will never get to their level. And that's just kind of that attitude that permeates with a lot of faculty. And I think it's because they've never been in the world. And I've just been hugely blessed for me to be able to be an instructor and be able to bring a lot of this real life stuff in
Mhm.
with the technical subject matter and be able to bring real life examples. And I always have students come back and I'll run into them later and they go, you know what? I didn't remember the exact material, but I remembered the story that you told me of what happened with those cows. And I'm out. This has been a bunch of veterinarians have told me. So, I remember when I
Mhm.
was out and I was looking at these cows and I remember that story you told in class and I went, dang, there it is. And so being able to bring those real world examples, I think, is important. And I truthfully, in animal science, and I was there 16 years, there was not any other faculty, and there are no faculty there now that have ever had a job outside of academia.
And I think that's part of the problem with education in general, K-12 and post-secondary, is you've got so many people teaching our kids who have never had real life experience. They went to school, then they went to college, then they went to the classroom. So they have no real world experience.
Right.
And the same thing with college. They went to school, they went to college, then they were associate professors, and then they were professors. And they have no idea how the real world works. And they're trying to teach kids how to survive in the real world with no concept of the real world, and then surrounded by all of these other academics who have no idea how the real world works.
So everybody protects everybody because you're all a fraud.
Yeah.
Maybe not a fraud's pretty.
Well, fraud, maybe fraud's the wrong word, but just clueless, I think. Just absolutely clueless. I was in a book group when I first moved here. Are you familiar with the newcomers in Fort Collins?
I know of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I joined the newcomers because I was new and I loved the newcomers. I loved that group. And we were reading a book. I can't remember the book now. And there was a Native American and this poor little girl who had an abusive alcoholic father, a little white girl. And there was all of this sympathy for the Native American in the book, but no sympathy for the poor little white girl who was being very abused by her alcoholic father. It was very, very sad. And then the conversation turned. This was, when BLM was kind of starting and church was burning and things were happening. And these women were talking about these statues needed to come down because they were so racist in the South, and all of these conversations. And it just sounded off to me. And I finally looked at these women and I said, do you know any Black people?
Right.
And they just looked at me. I said, no, I'm asking legitimately because, I have a lot of Black friends. And when I say a lot of Black friends, it's not like I know a Black person. I mean, I've been to their homes. They've been to my homes. We've traveled together. We dine together. We go to church together. I've been to funerals with them. I have real life Black friends. Do you know Black people? Do you have Black friends? Well, and I said, I'm telling you right now, they have bigger fish to fry. This is not their biggest concern.
Right.
And I know this because I talk to them. So, and some people are very upset about these things. I'm not saying all of my Black friends are not, but the majority of my Black friends, they're like, yeah, okay, that statue could come down, but I'm not going to go out and protest this statue.
My daily life.
No, so because they're just surrounded by groupthink, and they're not out in the world talking to people who are different than them.
Yep,
and it really is a good idea to talk to people who are different than you. I mean, these people were very different than me in my newcomers group, and I talked to them all the time.
Right.
So I got a very different perspective, but they didn't talk to anybody different than them.
Well, and Shirley and I call that an echo chamber. If you just stay in your echo chamber with the people you want and that are going to
agree with you all the time,
preconceived idea already, then that's pretty hard to get past.
And that's why I admire her so much for what she's doing, trying to bring people together to have these conversations and say, maybe talk to somebody with a different perspective.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, people know I work in beef, right? But they also know I have these credentials that come from more academic and more of a science background. And the people that are willing to learn are genuinely surprised how much misinformation's out there.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of that guy that goes to the grocery store. And have you ever noticed it has this thing that says all natural beef?
Yeah. What does that mean?
On the store. And so I'm just the guy I'll find the guy putting meat out and I go, hey, can you show me where the all unnatural meat is? I want to see that. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I went, well, if this is all natural, show me the all unnatural meat. And he goes, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's just weird of kind of how all this labeling goes about. And certified Angus beef has been a great one. The Angus Association has done an amazing marketing job.
Yeah, propaganda job.
Oh, it's been amazing. They've done great work.
Yeah. Well, it was only a few years ago that I understood that there was a difference with all of the different labeling of chickens and all of the different labelings of eggs, that free range didn't really mean like it was out in the pasture having a good time. It just meant that it was not in a cage.
The USDA definition of free range poultry is you have to have access to the outside. That's the definition.
Access.
Just
there has to be a hole in the building.
Well, I know two guys that raise free range chickens. and they're in the panhandle of Texas. They're all raised in barns, and I'm like, how do you get by with that? And he goes, every day when I go in to check these chickens in this chicken barn, I leave the door open.
So they have access.
They have access to the outside. I said, has any of them ever left? No. Why would they leave? All their food and water's right here. So no, they don't go out.
Yeah. Cage free, free range.
The cage-free one's really funny to me because if people really understood what that means, so you have laying hens in a barn, walking around pooping everywhere.
Right.
Where
It's
does that egg
disgusting.
go? It doesn't go in a cage where it stays clean. It goes right into that poop. That's where it lands. And most people don't know an egg is very porous. It can exchange gases. If you think it doesn't exchange other things going through there while it's laying in that poop pile,
So don't eat cage-free eggs.
I would not.
No. I try to I pay extra. I do. I pay extra for my pasture-raised eggs.
Well, Shirley and I have 3 chickens.
See, I don't have any room for chickens, Craig.
We'll grab 2 chickens, put them at our house. We used to live across the street.
That's true. Some chickens.
Except a mountain lion came through a couple of weeks ago and ate one.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, if I put a chicken in your house, it would be my chicken.
It was one of our young ones, so it was. But yeah, because it's just her and I, so we don't eat that many eggs. We still can't eat 3 eggs a day.
Yeah. But I would love to have some chickens.
But there's a lot of misinformation out there for sure about how all that works and where your meat comes from, whether it's poultry or swine or beef or poultry or pork or beef.
Well, what do we need to know then about meat? How are they mislabeling that fools us? And when I say they, I mean the government.
It's not necessarily the government. It's the people that actually package the meat. So
really?
If you think about in the United States...
sorry, government. Sorry.
There's an impact, right? But beef is processed, 85% of the beef in the United States is processed by 4 companies.
That I did know.
4 companies.
That part I knew.
Poultry is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 companies. Control 92%. Swine... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people control 95%, or not people, but corporate groups. So it's a very concentrated of who's putting that out. Is there a lot of variation in that product? No, not really. Is there some labeling differences? Yeah. But when they say all natural, and then the other really funny one to me is when it says hormone free. It is impossible for anything to be hormone free.
Because the animals have natural hormones in their bodies.
Natural hormones are always moving, right? I mean, I didn't take any.
So it's no added hormones.
That's what it should say. That would be accurate. No added hormones would be accurate. The funniest one to me another funny one to me with poultry is when they label it and say no injected antibiotics. The poultry industry puts all antibiotics in the water or in the feed. So just because it wasn't injected doesn't mean they didn't get some. It can go right through their watering system and go right in their feed. Not a problem.
Huh.
So that just because it's no injected antibiotics doesn't mean they haven't gotten antibiotics.
So how do you know that your poultry, how can you ensure your poultry is antibiotic free? Because I don't want any antibiotics in my
they would have to label
chicken.
it antibiotic free.
It would have to say antibiotic free.
Yeah.
Is there a label for that?
There is. And here's my trouble with no antibiotics, because I've consulted with some dairies that were all natural, organic, and nearly always they have a corresponding farm right next to it that's not.
Right, and there's runoff.
And so what worries me, well, not necessarily runoff from the ground, but there's potential for cross contamination, right? I mean, in the air with birds, all that stuff. There's things that get. But what I would see, because they got such a premium on milk on this organic side, they would actually let that cow suffer a lot longer before they give her antibiotics.
Oh.
Because once they gave her antibiotics, then she had to come over into the conventional side to be milked over there, because now she's not organic anymore because they gave her a shot of antibiotics.
So they can't just wait for the antibiotics to get out of her system?
But there's a period of withdrawal time. So while she's over there,
it
might be 60 days before the Organic Association says that particular drug will take 60 days to completely clear out of the system. Well, by then her lactation's over. So in order to not lose that money, I've watched these guys allow those animals to suffer longer before they intervene, because it takes them out of that organic high-end milk market.
Oh, that's a shame.
So just because the labels say something that you're aligned with does not mean that's always the best animal care. or yeah, not always the best, not most humane care, and it does not necessarily mean that's the best for you either.
Well, damn.
Just be careful and be educated and pay attention to what people are putting out and how they're publishing it, because it's a very few number of companies that are able to do that. And to know in the poultry industry, poultry's always, from a protein source, is always going to win on cost. And the reason is because of it, we call it vertical integration. So like the Smithfields and the Sanderson Farms, they own the chickens that lay the eggs, and they own them all the way through. They just pay cooperators, they're called, these farmers, to put buildings on their farm, and the farmers take care of them, and then they get paid a premium for the better job that they do raising these chicks. The genetics are so amazing in poultry. From the time a little yellow chick hatches out of that egg until the time that it's in a vacuum packaged container in your store, guess how long?
6 months?
8 weeks.
8 weeks? It
That's how
goes
fast they
it
turn
goes
over.
from a chick to a mature bird that you can eat in 8 weeks?
Not a fully mature bird. They've got the genetics lined up for the most efficient feed use, to the most efficient growth rate, for the most efficient product that goes into your package. They're only 8 weeks old.
8 weeks? They're little babies.
No, they're not little babies. Those buggers are about
They're
this tall.
big babies.
They're big guys.
They're still babies.
They weigh 5 to 6 pounds, which gives you about a 4 to 5 pound carcass.
Wow. So what if you're eating pasture-raised chickens? Are they older?
Probably. They're going to have to be to gain, and that's kind of like
Yeah.
grass-fed beef. And I like grass-fed beef. I like the flavor of the beef
Mhm.
better than I do grain-fed. The problem is that the best utilization of our resources? Because a grass-fed beef, I can get a calf to a harvest weight in probably 14 months. A grass-fed beef to harvest weight is going to take 24 to 26. And so they're out there, and if you're into the methane part and all the methane, that's that much more time and that much more methane being excreted. They're also eating more grass. They're taking up more space. There's all this additive stuff that I think a lot of people don't think about, when we can turn them a lot faster on that high-end diet.
I think of those omega-6s because our food supply is so rich with omega-6s because of the way we feed our animals.
is,
And so
and it's
we're
all
all
about speed.
topsy-turvy.
And it's all about speed.
So I try to watch. I have a real concern with omega-6s.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. I supplement 3s because I know I get way too much 6, right?
Right.
And I would just encourage people to take control of your food,
Mhm.
especially your meat and your protein sources. And Fort Collins is an amazing place. Probably the most opportunities here to buy beef from somebody
Well,
you know who they raised it and how
yeah.
they raised it and what they did with it. Pork, you can do the same thing here. And poultry, you can do the exact same thing. There's some guys up north of town that raise these chickens out on these, they call them in a chicken tractor,
Mhm.
where they actually, it's like a portable coop, and they just move them around over new grass all the time and move them around these
So
farms.
that's what I should do. I should get my chickens from somebody
so-
local. I do get my as you know, I get my meat from somebody local.
The problem is it costs more, and it's more of a hassle than just running by the grocery store on your way home and grabbing something.
It is true. But if you get a few of them, then you can freeze them,
And so
and you've got them on hand.
You have to be. It takes planning.
Mhm.
And my kids, honestly, I think they may have grown up never buying meat in the grocery store.
Well, my dad always had, he would split a cow with a neighbor, and he would split a pig with a neighbor. So we always had pork and we always had beef in the house. Chicken, no, we didn't do chicken, but we always had pork and beef. And then my mother-in-law, my ex-mother-in-law, who I love, by the way, I do, but she would go to the Delaware Chicken Farm in Davie, Florida, and that's where she got her chickens. And she would go and she'd buy a bunch of chicken there and then bring it home. She never bought. I mean, she did not buy store meat unless she absolutely had to.
Well,
She shopped at the Italian deli and the Italian meat market and then Delaware Chicken Farm. She was a woman ahead of her time. This was in the 80s.
Well, I always barter with people. And if I did some cow work for somebody, some consulting for them, I'd say, look, here's what the bill's going to be. I'll trade you half a beef. And they'd go, "Shoot, I'll do that all day."
Nice.
And so that's what I would do. Or, somebody else I worked with a meat processor out in Kersey, and I said, "You know what? Look, let's just do half a pork." He goes, "Man, I'll do that all day."
Yeah.
And then I helped these guys up north on some poultry things. They were having some things going on in their little plant they were using, and I went and helped them kinda figure out what was happening, and shoot, I think they said, "You know what? Just come by when you need chickens. We'll just keep you in chicken."
Chicken for life.
And so I would just go by there. Yeah, I mean, I haven't taken any in a while because I felt like I haven't done enough work to earn it, but they were super good, and I go by there and they give me 3 chickens already frozen and processed that had gone through their system and had never really been on feed. They'd just been grazed on grass and taken good care of, and like our chickens here, we let them free range. I mean,
Mhm.
if something needs them, something needs them.
Right.
That's kinda how the world works, but
So they're laying hens, and then when they're finished
Mhm.
laying, do you process them after that?
No, we tried once.
Mhm.
Uh,
No.
the the bulk of we call them spent laying hens in the United States truly goes into, soup,
Oh,
and all they do is boil them, pull the bones off, chop it up in little bitty pieces, and it goes into soup.
okay.
You do not wanna eat it. We
No.
we tried, I mean, it was stringy, yellow, it was
No.
nasty, and the genetics in the poultry industry have done such a great job. The layers are bred for laying genetics, not for meat.
Okay.
They wanna put all their energy into making eggs, not into building protein or building muscle. The meat birds are very different. I actually did a deal in one of my classes in the introductory animal science class. Because we have a little space and we had the barn to do it, I went and personally bought 10 chickens, 10 meat birds, and 10, egg-laying birds just to demonstrate the genetic difference,
Mhm.
and we put them on feed, and the kids would come out for lab, and they'd have to weigh them, and I made up some measurements they had to take, and and I think it took them 12 weeks, 'cause it probably wasn't as good a food, but, probably took them 12 weeks for those meat birds to be ready to harvest,
Wow.
and they were like 3 times bigger than the laying hens. I mean, the growth rate was amazingly different, and that's 100% genetics. They were on the exact same feed.
The same feed, but it was just genetics.
Exact same. Yeah, so the genetics, you don't wanna eat a laying hen.
I want the genetics of a laying hen. I wanna be able to eat that much and stay small.
You and me both. I'm tired of having to go to the gym and watch what I eat,
That's my gym right there.
right?
It's behind us.
Sometimes a big old piece of cake or pie would be good.
Every once in a while, it was Easter. I had some Easter cake on Easter. It was
Yeah.
good.
We had some, carrot cake a couple of
Yeah.
days ago,
My
so that was
kids
good.
brought me a little gluten-free
Oh,
cake so that I could have a little something.
there you go.
They
There
were
you go. That's all good.
they were so thoughtful. So you had those kids out in your barn. What do you tell kids, these college students who come to you and they say they wanna do a life in ag? What advice do you give them? What where do you steer them?
The absolute truth is I try to drill down and say, what do you really wanna do in ag?
Mhm.
Because saying I wanna be in ag is I mean, that's just too broad. You
Mhm.
gotta narrow down and have some focus if you wanna get something done. So I try to get them to narrow down as close as they can, and the truth is most of the time, college is not gonna get them there. And so, like, I've done nutrition work my whole ever since grad school and kinda was my primary job for 5 years, and, um, I'd always have students say, "Hey, I wanna come do what you do," and I went, "Okay, then you need to move to Del Rio first and gain all this life experience and get." But I said, "If you really wanna be a nutritionist, I suggest you just go work with a nutritionist. Go talk to a nutritionist, say, 'Look, I wanna do what you do, and I wanna help you. So for the first 2 years, I'll work for $30,000 a year. I'll do whatever you tell me. I'll drive you where you need to go. I'll just be your guy to do whatever you need.'" And then at the end of that 2 years, you'd have this agreement that if I become proficient, then you will give me some kind of a way to either stay in your company or I can take what I've learned from you and market that to another group. Because I just do not believe the university is teaching I don't think they have the ability, much less the desire to teach kids how to do that in the real world because there's not anybody there that's ever done it.
No, you're the only one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just teach online, so I'm not even on campus.
So you really caution them.
I do because you're gonna go spend $150,000 and still not be where you wanna be. Just because you get a degree in animal nutrition, an undergraduate degree, does not mean that you can be a nutritionist.
I think it's important, that real world experience.
And there's so many opportunities. Yeah, and I just And when parents say, "Well, they need to go to school because I had a great time and it was eye-opening to me," and I went, "But what does it cost now?"
So
Since
much.
I've been at CSU, they have gone up the tuition has gone up the limit the state would allow them to go up every year.
No, it's crazy. That's one of the things I did like about working at CEC, Colorado Early Colleges, was that the kids could be in high school and college at the same time and graduate with
Yep,
a bachelor's degree and save tens of thousands
yep,
of dollars because it's exorbitant. It's thank God I started saving for my kids when they were born. I mean, the second I was pregnant, those college accounts opened,
yep.
or I would never have been able to afford to send my kids to school.
Well, our kids worked while they were in school too, and
Yeah,
and that's the other thing,
ours did too.
a lot of kids don't understand is they go in and their academic advisor is somebody that just graduated 2 years before them and couldn't get a job. That's nearly all the academic advisors are like that. And so they push them to get done in 4 years, and I finally went to an advisor at CSU and I said, "Why pushing for the 4 years?" "Well, they've got to graduate in 4 years." It's almost impossible in today's world, and especially if they have to work. Well, no, they gotta graduate in 4 years. Well, what I found out is there is a government subsidy to every university, but it only lasts for 4 years per student.
Oh, another subsidy.
Yeah, yeah.
There
So
we go.
so it's the impetus of the university to get them in and gone, get them out of the way so they can get somebody else back on the subsidy.
Oh, that makes sense. I was a
Yep,
5-year kid. It
yep.
took me 5 years because I worked. I had to work.
Well, I used to tell kids all the time, there is n you do not have to graduate in 4 years. It would be better to make it 7 years and you working and have no debt.
Oh, no,
That's the best
absolutely.
option.
No, it to come out of school with no debt, I did come out with a loan, but we were able to pay off our loans, my husband and I, very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah, but we worked hard to get those loans paid off.
But again, I think it goes back to not having people that actually live in reality
Yep.
giving good advice.
Yeah. 4
And
years.
so my thing with education is you do not go to another degree and go to another college when you graduate high school if you don't know what you want to do.
And I think that's the biggest mistake because I went to school not know I mean, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I think I changed my major about 15,000 times my first year of school. And then I graduated with a communications degree because it was just the fastest way out at that point.
Right,
I just needed to get out. And then I worked for a couple of years and decided to go back for education, English. So I went for English because I could teach
right.
with with an English degree. I didn't have to get an education degree to
Yep,
teach.
yep,
So then I went back for English and then I went back for a master's in education after
yep.
that. So it was just this trajectory. But then I did better because I knew what the heck I wanted to do. But I didn't know. It would have been nice to have waited a little while and
Right,
then just done
right.
it the first
And maybe
time.
get some experience,
Yeah.
some work experience, yeah.
Yeah. Because I could have done what I was doing without a degree.
Right,
I mean,
right.
I was a manager at Burdine's department store. I didn't even have a degree for that.
Well, I mean, if you look at the statistics, I mean, it's a large number of people that their first job out of college is not in their degree field.
Yeah. I mean, I worked everybody in my little training class, we all had degrees, but there were a couple of people who worked their way up into management. They didn't have degrees.
Right.
And they were on the same and they probably were only working a couple of years. So if I'd have worked a couple of years, I could work my way right
Yep.
up into management.
Right.
It was not that hard.
I know, I know, I know, but yeah, it's just they've done a good job selling that you can't be successful without a college degree, and I just don't believe that's true.
Well, it's not true at all. I look at my former father-in-law. He is a multi-bazillionaire, and he didn't. He graduated from high school when he was 14 years old because he was brilliant. But he didn't have the opportunity to go to college. Nobody ever talked to him about going to college. It wasn't a thing. He went to work in the fur trade with his dad.
Hmm.
So they would get up at the crack of dark, take the train in New York to the furs, work until the crack of dark and back home and did that for years and years and years. And finally he said, this is for the birds. Took his wife, went to Florida, and then they opened a laundromat, and then he went into masonry, and then he went into drywall, and he saw the guy, his boss, working in drywall, making all this money. And he's like, well, if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So he
Right.
opened his own drywall company. And then my ex husband joined him and took white collar mentality to blue collar business. Boom.
Yep.
Bazillionaires.
Yep. Yep.
Bazillionaires. No college degree, just a good work ethic, hard work, and a lot of brains
And take some risk and work hard.
and risk
Yeah.
and integrity
Yeah.
and all the
Yeah.
things. So, no, you don't have to have a degree to be successful.
Yeah. No, I agree. I no.
But it does help in a lot. I mean, I want my doctor to have a degree. There's some things you need to study for. I think that's important. But like for teaching and education, You need to know your stuff, but I don't think you need, like, a certification. There are some things that I think
Yeah. Oh,
you
I
can
agree.
do innately that you don't need to have all
I
of
agree. I think
this
there's a lot of stuff that
higher ed.
that needs to be learned on
Mhm.
the ground and learned by doing
Mhm.
versus somebody telling you something in the classroom that kind of a textbook.
Yeah, and some of the things that teach you these days, especially in education, is just they're things that we shouldn't be teaching teachers that we're teaching teachers.
Well, I used to never make students buy a textbook
Really?
because it was out of date by the time you wanted to use it in class anyway.
Well, yeah, that's why you had to buy the new edition every year.
And they were so that yeah, the bookstore was so mad at me because I never required a book.
You weren't helping their bottom line at
No, I
all.
felt it was a huge ripoff, and I was not willing to do that.
So no textbook for you.
No textbooks, no I
But your
did
kids learned.
they did,
Your
yep,
students learned.
yep,
They knew what they were doing.
yep.
Talk to me about this expert witness stuff that you're doing. I mean,
That's,
you're a professor, a rancher, and then you're in courts.
so, yeah, my kids if you ask my kids what I do, they're really confused because all they've ever seen me is do, like, the king of the side hustle, right? I'm always doing something. So it was just a random deal. An attorney called me one time. He goes, "Hey, can you come give us an opinion on something that happened? And there's this lawsuit we have." And so I went and gave him my opinion, wrote something up, and he said, "Okay, send me a bill." And I said, "Well, what do most expert witnesses charge?" And he told me and it was a big number per hour. And I went, "Well, shoot, you got any more of this work?" And he said, "Well, maybe." And so um, most of it is in agricultural stuff, and it's nearly always. I never I always go on the I'm always to help the farmer and the rancher. I'm never on the side that's suing the farmer or the rancher.
Mhm.
And it's nearly always lawsuits, and it's 99% of the time it's between 2 insurance companies trying to decide who's gonna pay. And a lot of them have been, the laws in Colorado are, with livestock on the highways, it's an open range state, and so if you've made reasonable effort on your fencing to keep your cows in, then you're protected from a lawsuit. Well, that's where the gray area happens, and so if somebody's driving down the road and they hit a cow,
What is reasonable effort?
yeah, what is yeah, and
Yeah,
so that's kinda what I usually speak to based on my experience academically, on the ground, ranching, all that kinda stuff, I can speak to that pretty clearly, and it's nearly always the insurance company that the the driver had that hit the cow, they don't really wanna pay for that car or injuries or tragically, in some cases, even death.
mm,
And so they're suing this other insurance company trying to make them pay. Well, that insurance company doesn't wanna pay it either because they don't feel like it's theirs, and so that's where the litigation comes is nearly always it's between 2 insurance companies trying to figure out who's gonna pay. But, um, it's been fun and has actually just been great opportunities for some extra income.
that's awesome. That is awesome. So it's a very deliberate decision then on your part to only defend the ranchers and the
Yeah,
farmers and not to
yeah, yeah,
defend the
yeah,
insurance
I'm not gonna
companies.
go against them. If I feel like they're actually in the wrong, I just turn it down.
Mhm.
I just yeah, I don't wanna have that reputation that, "Well, here's this guy promoting agriculture everywhere, and then he's shooting at us so he can make money."
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that.
no.
So
Was there any case in particular that stood out for you that really hit home?
it was yeah, there was a Weld County case where, in Colorado, you have we call it the public and the rural interface, right? So, as these subdivisions get bigger, they keep moving towards these ranches, and there was a guy over in Weld County, and I'm not condoning his actions, but as these neighborhoods started inching up closer to his ranch, and I think people start to think if you're in metropolitan area and you're downtown, then yes, you gotta have your dog on a leash. But as they start moving further out, people kinda have this idea that, well, I can just let my dogs run free. There's not that many people. And
Mhm.
so there was these 2 dogs that were going over and were killing this guy's calves.
Oh.
In 1 week, they killed like 6. And the rancher saw them, saw what dogs they were, followed them home, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, here's what's happening. You owe me for 6 calves, and they're worth this much money." Well, the guy says, "Yeah, no, it wasn't my dogs." He said, "No, I followed your dog. I watched him kill a calf today. I followed them home to this house. I know these are your dogs. I can see them right there. These are the dogs that killed them. They still have blood on their face." And the guy slammed the door on him.
Oh,
So the dogs came back a couple of days later. The rancher shot the dogs. Well, now the owner is suing the rancher because he shot his dogs. That was kind of the funniest one, but
yeah,
But I actually had to testify to that one. A lot of these, once I submit my opinion and make it, 'cause some of these attorneys don't understand the
Mhm.
rural areas either, and so once I write my opinion up and send it in, there's probably 90% of the time they settle because they go, "Okay, this we're not gonna win this. If it goes to jury, they're gonna believe this bald guy," so but that one did go to jury. I mean, they took it in, went to court.
So there's a jury in that one. Did when there are juries involved, is there like, do your arguments get or your testimony, does it get technical? Is there data or is it just a story?
It's mostly a story, and it's mostly about people. In that case, it was about those people not being responsible and taking care of their dogs, and
Mhm.
that it was their fault. The dogs could have gotten hit on the highway by a car. That was negligence. The dogs could have hurt another kid. Once they started killing calves, why would they not kill a small child? And so kinda went through all that logically. So a little bit technical, but a little bit practical and a little bit anecdotal, and
But nothing that would go over a jury's head, something that they could easily understand?
no, I've been doing this stuff a long time, teaching in class and that kinda thing because you start
Mhm.
to learn how to
How to
bring it to wherever the
how to
people are.
persuade.
Yeah, and you can watch it's fun to me to testify because you can kinda watch a jury and you kinda see a few of them start nodding their heads. If you nod your head, I'm coming. Right, and so I just make that story go, and I've had lawyers, as I walked off the stand, high-five me before, um, which is probably not appropriate, but but, yeah, it's been fun. But
Yeah, I wonder what
it's
the jury
interesting.
thinks when they see
It's
the
interesting.
attorney high five.
It's interesting, but they've already bought the jury's already bought it,
Yeah.
right, I mean, by that time, so it's been interesting, and it's been fun, and it's it's one thing I can do, and, yeah, it's a lot of money. I mean, the hourly rate is ridiculous, and then when you win, when they do the settlement, the attorney will call me and go, "Look, we also got damages and we got legal fees, so you know what? Just be creative on your bill, whatever you wanna do."
Nice.
But that's not how the system should be. That's where the fraud comes in, and that's where that's why our insurance costs are what they are.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, every time you turn around.
It's everywhere.
But those are fun. Those are fun to do.
How long have you been doing that?
Probably 15 years.
15 years, and it
Yeah,
just fell in your lap.
just fell in my lap. My oldest daughter wanted to be an attorney, and I did some work for her. Actually, she's in the House of Representatives now, in Wyoming. Harriet Hageman is an attorney in Cheyenne, and, had a grad student in that graduate program that wanted to go to law school, and she went and worked for Harriet. So when my daughter wanted to go, I got her an internship with Harriet, and I'd done a couple of cases with Harriet, and, one of the things my daughter had to do was organize some files or something or whatever, and she calls me and she goes, "Dad, you really charged them this much an hour?" I said, "I charge everybody that much an hour." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to law school and be an expert witness." I
There you
said,
go.
"What are you gonna be an expert in?"
You gotta be an expert
Yeah,
first.
yeah, yeah. She was a track runner, so I said, "Well, you know what? If there's a you might could
A track
testify to
injury.
track injuries, but that'd be about it."
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I saw their pictures today
Right?
on Facebook, your little tracks are um, so, Mr. Ranch Manager, who managed people,
Yes, ma'am.
you're a people manager and a ranch manager. What does managing a ranch entail that they don't teach you about in the university system?
The big thing is how do you take all these different disciplines and put them together to make good decisions? And then the people part, and you can imagine in Del Rio, Texas, it was 100% Hispanics that worked for me. I did not understand the Hispanic culture, and I was just arrogant enough in my mid to late 20s to think I didn't need to because I was the boss. And so I actually one of my guys, I pastured some cattle for a guy one time, and we had about 10,000 yearlings, and that's cattle that are a little less than a year, and we were holding them for the winter and then so they could go to feedlot, and we were kind of the stalker grower that we talked about earlier, and, we were gonna ship them the next day. Well, that's like 20 trucks, and I mean, it's a big deal. It's not a small thing. And so one of my main guys that lived there close to where we were, he came to me and he said, "Hey, it's my daughter's quinceanera, and, I'm gonna need a couple of days off." And I said, "You know what? No. We're working these cattle. No.
Oh,
You gotta stay here.
Craig.
No, you can't get off." I didn't know any better though, but I use this example with people all the time,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so he quit.
yeah,
Literally, he quit. And so I'm like, "Well, why is that such a big deal?" Well, okay, now I understand the culture. I bet I don't do that again.
yeah.
So even when I work with other groups or people, whoever it is, I make sure I understand culturally what's going on.
Mhm.
And I've been able to share with a lot of agriculture people because Hispanic is a big part of the workforce of,
Mhm.
and especially when I was working with some dairies, is you got to understand their culture and what they value. Some people
That's
value money, some people value time, some people value gifts. You got to figure out what motivates the people that you have, and it's got to be genuine. You can't just do it as a manipulative tool. It's got to be
Mhm.
genuine. And one of my best examples, this dairyman that I was working with, he was running a little bit late, so I went in the dairy and there's always a dairy parlor where they're milking the cows, and then there's a break room, and then the dairy offices are there, and so I just walked through the break room, and there was a couple of guys sitting there and spending some time in Del Rio. I speak good Spanish, ranch worker Spanish, and so I just said hello to them. I sat down and visited with them, and one of them gave me a burrito, and the dairyman came in. I went and sat down with him, and he said, "Where'd you get that burrito?" And I said, "Well, Jesus gave it to me." And he goes, "Jesus has worked for me for 6 years. He's never given me a burrito." And I said, "Well, have you ever taken the time to sit down and talk to him?" And he goes, "Well, no." And I said, "'Cause if you did, you'd find out that his wife has cancer, and you'd find out that his daughter is dating a guy that is not good for her, but the cancer is treatable, but he's gonna need some time off, and he's scared to ask you." So, my advice to people in the ranching world is take some time because it's not all about you. You're not gonna get all this stuff done by yourself.
Mm-mm. But I think that's a sign of a good leader. I think that's just good leadership advice. I think wherever you find yourself in the world, if you're managing people or leading people, you have to know your people and you have to respond to your people accordingly. Because if you don't know your people, they're not going to give
Right,
you a burrito
right.
and you're not going to know what's happening. And they're going to come in grumpy and mad. And you're going to go, what the hell is her problem today? Or what the heck is his problem? And you're not going to know that they just got news from their doctor that they have to come in for a cancer screening and that they
Yeah,
might have cancer, or that student that's jumping up and down on her desk is her father's in prison and she really misses him. But you don't know those things if your people don't trust you
yeah,
enough to tell you.
right.
So that's a big life lesson for
And
anybody in a leadership
I'm a
position.
slow learner because I got to CSU, got this faculty job, and I was on this tenure track, which means you have 6 years to get tenure. That's money, that's publications. Teaching is a small part of that because the university only cares about what makes money. That's
Hmm.
publications and grants. I had 8 graduate students, and I was so frustrated with them, I could choke them. We weren't getting the publications done, I wasn't getting grants funded, and I was about to lose my mind. And then I stopped, and I remember this story. The guy's name was Fidencio. I'll never forget his name. I can still see his face, the old Mexican guy. And I stopped to think, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. I fell back in the same trap. I'm making this whole thing about me getting tenure, not about how do I help these grad students get a job? How do I make these grad students better on the other side, getting out? How can I help them get this publication finished?
Hmm.
What can I do to keep this moving?" And once I took that focus off of me and my success and just focused on their success, all these publications just started happening. And so I was successful as a byproduct of their success and was able to apply for tenure early and do all of that. So I just try to help remind people about that. That if you make it about if your focus is to make other people successful, your success is going to be a byproduct.
So that sounds like one of your principles that you
Probably, yeah.
hold yourself
Try.
to. So what other principles do you hold yourself to?
Um, it's an interesting question. I don't know if I've ever sat down and really written out my core principles. I mean, I know what they are probably. I feel very strongly that if I give my word on something, that no matter what, I do it.
Hmm.
And even if it's at great detriment to me. Last week, well, what is today? Tuesday. Was Friday, Good Friday. A friend of mine was having a bull sale that I've helped him with his bulls, helped him with his nutrition, helped him with a lot of stuff. I told him I'd be at the bull sale to support him.
Hmm.
It's out in Sterling.
Oh, that's a
I
drive.
got up that morning, I went, "Oh, I just do not feel good. I feel horrible today. I'm not going." Then I'm like, "Yes, I am." I told him I'd be there, so I'll be there. I'm not dead, so I better be there.
Yep.
But keeping my word, following through my word, being honest, even when it might be cost me a relationship, be 100% honest with people.
Those are good ones. And, I'm sure hard in the line of work that you're in too.
It is, yeah, and it's not everybody has the same,
Yeah.
because currently this company that I'm working for, it's all about sales, and it's all about product, and it's all about these I don't even it's a record system online that you have to do with talking to clients and people and business and who you sold to, who you might sell to. I mean, it's a whole big mess, and there was actually, a colleague that called me yesterday, and he goes, "Hey," he said, um, "We're behind on" 'cause I'm technical support of all these sales guys is kinda what I do, and so these sales guys they'd gotten together and there's this they have to meet a quota of the number of, what do they call it, um, client FaceTime, CFTs, as they call it. So, they have to meet, like, 20 a month, 20 face-to-face conversations with people that might buy products a month. Well, I don't have
So
that.
not Zoom.
Not Zoom, it has to be face to face. So, they were trying to manipulate all of that and count them. Like, when we met with people, because sometimes I go with them just to provide technical understanding of
Mhm.
stuff, and, like, we met with a group of 5 different nutritionists in Texas a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about breaking those out into individual meetings, and I'm like, "But those are not individual meetings, it's all one." And they said, "But there were 5 people, so why couldn't that be 5?" And I said, "Well, I don't mind you counting it as 5, and I have some authority over them," and I said, "Why don't you just be honest about it?" And so we asked the guy that we all answer to and said, "Hey, look, here's where we are. We don't wanna be dishonest. We're not going to be dishonest. My guys
Mhm.
will not be out dishonest." But they had to conform to my principles whether they wanted to or not.
Right. Because if it weren't your principles, they would have counted those as 5 meetings.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But when we went to the boss says, "No, you can count them as 5. You had a meeting and there were 5 nutritionists. You can count them as 5."
So clarification, done.
Yeah, yeah,
But you
and everybody's honest,
didn't have to be sneaky
and
about it.
everybody's honest.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't do that. I get a pit in my stomach if I say anything that somebody misconstrues, and I think they even misunderstood what I said and misrepresented.
Yeah,
I get all freaked out, and I have
yeah,
to call and go,
Shirley's like that.
that's not what I meant." They're like, "No, I didn't think that's what you meant."
Yeah,
Okay, okay, good. I just can't. I don't want anybody to think that I've ever said something that I didn't mean. You know what? They might have thought I meant something, but I didn't mean it that way.
well,
I
in
just
today's world
no.
of all the social media and emails and texts and stuff, I mean, I just encourage people to be very, very careful what you type out.
You have to be.
Extremely careful what you put out.
I try not to put anything out
Yeah,
unless it's like related to this, and this is pretty benign.
yeah. You never know, never know,
It's kind of scary.
right?
You had talked earlier about water, and we didn't have a lot of water this winter because we didn't have a
Mhm.
lot of snow. And I'm with you on the snow. It can snow in the mountains. I need snow in the mountains. I only got to ski one time this season, which is a bummer. But snow in the mountains just don't snow down here. I don't.
Right,
I'm
right.
over it. The first winter I was here, Craig, it's in 2015. I moved in 2015, so the first winter would have been 2016. There was so much snow.
Oh, I know, we were here, us shoveling it.
I was so excited because I came from Florida, and my neighbors, they shoveled for me. I didn't do any shoveling, and it was just glorious. And then the next winter, I was like, "I'm so done with this." So I'm with you on the snow thing. But when it comes to your business and ranchers and all of this, and when the water is not happening and things are thin and the margins are thin, what do they do? How do they manage that and still stay principled?
Well, you really don't have a choice because the grass is not gonna grow, there's nothing to
Yeah.
feed the cows. So, what I do with people is try to create I call them trigger points. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have 100% precipitation by April 1, then you've got to get rid of 25% of your cows.
Oh man.
If you don't have precipitation numbers by May 1, another 25%, because it just gets hotter, it gets harder to grow grass, and there's no way you're gonna catch up. And so by mid-July, if you don't have rain, everybody's gotta go.
So this is gonna be a hard year for
It's
ranchers.
gonna be super hard, no doubt. So your choices are either sell them, which the market right now is amazing,
Mhm.
or you have to find somewhere to put them. And so if you've invested a lot in genetics over the years, then you have to go find somewhere where it's rained and lease that land and truck all your cows over there. And then when it rains, you can bring them back, or you have to sell them, or you can put them in a pen and feed them
So we need to pray for a
at
wet
great cost.
spring.
At great cost, yeah.
Wow,
And
that's
so
a
it
lot.
is. It is. It's dry. I mean, and it's yeah. There's going to be water restrictions. And
Mhm.
I was talking to a kid the other day. I said, "What are you going to do this summer?" Because I'm gonna be a rafting guide. And I went, "I don't think
I don't
so.
think so. There's no
There's not going
there's
to be
no
enough
snow
water.
melt.
There's not going to be enough water to run a raft anyway."
No, no, there's no melt.
Yeah,
There's
there's
no
not
melt.
any. So water is a big thing in ranching, and it has to, but you have to manage around it, and you have to manage for it, and that's why you keep that stocking rate low, so you can make some adjustments there without having to sell off. You buy a little bit of time, but you got to have those points in time where you pull the trigger and know it has to be done.
Until ranchers come to you and say, "Hey, Craig, what do I do?"
Occasionally, the ones that I consult for now, I mean, we've already created this plan and these
Mhm.
trigger points, and so there's a couple of clients in Texas that have already sold 25%.
Wow.
And they're committed to selling the other 25 because we've gone through this process before and they know it works and it
Mhm.
saves their land. Because if you just keep those cows there, they will literally, trying to survive, eat it down to dirt. Nothing but dirt.
And then you have to grow grass again. Can
If
you
if
grow
they
grass
pull it if
again?
they pull it up by the
You
roots,
can't.
it won't come back.
Yeah,
And if that doesn't grow back, then all you get's weeds and noxious plants that aren't good for production anyway, and then they're in a real mess.
that's not good. What about the farmer's almanac? Do your farmers go by the farmer's?
No.
No. So is that a myth, the farmer's almanac?
I think it's much more entertainment than it is factual. I mean, occasionally, I mean, it's kinda like the weatherman. I mean, you got a 50/50
That's
chance of
true.
getting it right,
That's true.
so, the years it gets it right, people go, "Oh, the almanac was right." But, yeah, no,
No,
it's fun reading.
it's funny. So I always hear people say, "Well, the farmer's almanac said this year."
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's not there's no science or no
There's
accuracy to that.
nothing to this,
No,
just
no,
like a voodoo, the
no.
crystal ball for the
Again, it's a fun activity for ag people.
What does the future of agriculture look like in the United States? Are you worried? Are you hopeful?
I am very worried actually because of the corporate takeover that's happening.
Talk to me more about that.
When the corporations start to own more and more segments of an industry,
Mhm.
and have more and more control, then that's not a fair market. And that's where there's actually been some lawsuits recently that have been filed against the 4 major beef guys of price fixing, because if you think those guys don't talk, I mean, then you're not living in the real world about pricing and how they're gonna price meat and how meat's gonna go forward. There's just no way that's not happening, right? And so there's been some price fixing lawsuits that have gone on and some other things recently that maybe is slowing that down, but that's the scary part for me is if and I just talked to a guy last week, a rancher in Wyoming, and they have a little feedlot, and, the prices are so good right now and feed costs are so low, we're feeding cattle longer to a bigger weight. They were sending all their cattle to JBS over here in Greeley, to be harvested, not slaughtered. Nothing's slaughtered. It's a humane process,
Mhm.
and I like the term harvested way better than slaughter because who likes the word slaughter? I mean, that's horrible, right?
Yeah.
So they were gonna be harvested in Greeley. Well, the Greeley plant over there, the people that work there are unionized, and they're on strike.
Oh,
So the
dear.
plant shut down. So he's got some steers that are 1,600 pounds. They need to be harvested quickly. He can't find anywhere to get them harvested. He was getting a premium, and that's what he was feeding to is that premium to get it from Greeley because they wanted bigger carcasses. He can't find anywhere to take them because everybody these big packers, since there's only 4 of them, everything is scheduled out in advance. So trying to fit in another 200 somewhere, they're just not willing to do that. And so I don't know what he's gonna do. I gave him 2 or 3 other places to try, last week, but I don't know if he found it. Maybe he did because he hadn't called me back to
I
get some
hope
more
so.
names, but that's where it's scary is when you don't have control.
So, they unionized because did somebody else take over the plant or what?
No, JBS still owns the plant,
Mhm.
and most of these harvest facilities are really good entry-level job options for very, very fresh immigrants. I used to go through that plant when I was at CSU. I was in there probably a couple of times a month, and, Predominant Spanish is what you heard in there, the language. The last time
Mhm.
I was there, maybe a year ago, I started counting because I'm like, I don't even understand half of these people. And I started counting 10 different languages just that I could recognize. There was probably more,
Oh, wow.
but at least 10 different languages going in there. There's a lot of different nationalities that are in there now. I don't know if they're saying it was because of unsafe practices. Well, who gets to decide that, right? So I don't maybe they think it's unsafe, but maybe it's safer than the next plant down the road. I'm not sure, but that's kind of where they're striking, and they want some other things. So it's I don't know what they're going to do or when it's going to reopen or if it's going to reopen. But they were doing 4,000 a day.
So can they get other workers to come in and break the strike line? They need some
Um,
scabs.
that yeah, they need some scabs, but there's not a bunch of scabs out there that are willing to stand on a kill floor and get bloody all day and skin cattle.
Oh, man.
It's a pretty specific job that takes some training, and
Yeah.
then you have fabrication, which is what we call cutting up meat. So they come off in 4 pieces, quarters basically,
Mhm.
and then you start cutting those into individual cuts,
Right.
and that goes pretty fast down a fab line to be able to pull those off, and so there's
So
a lot
this
of
is
training.
skilled labor.
There's a skilled labor that goes in there, yeah. And
Ooh.
so there's a lot of cattle standing in feedlots right now with nowhere to go.
Well, I'll hold off on buying my next half cow for a little while.
Well, but again, it's because of this monopoly of these 4 corporations that control all of that.
So how would one go about opening a production company, a
So
harvesting
there's quite a
company?
few, smaller harvest facilities. Um, it's not a big moneymaker. It's hard work. They have a hard time keeping help. The ones I know around here that are successful are because most of the time it's 4 or 5 families that are trying to create this beef that they're selling direct to the consumer.
Mhm.
They go together and open it,
Okay.
and they're only doing their beef. They don't want anybody else. They don't wanna do pork. They don't wanna do anything else.
So it's just a bunch of ranchers that get together and they open their
Not
own?
usually a bunch, but a few.
Okay.
Yeah, that are trying to do a direct marketing approach with their beef.
Okay. Sounds like we need more of that. It's kinda like making our own antibiotics and not
Well, we do, but the
depending on
problem is
supply
and
chains.
that's what all ranchers want to direct market, so I can make all this money. I'm like, the problem is, I don't know what your last half of beef costs, but right now, a half is gonna cost you about $3,500.
No, it did not cost me that much.
Well, it will now. So it's gonna cost you about $3,500. How many families do you know could just go write a check for $3,500 to get half a
No,
beef?
you can't do that.
How many do you know have a freezer that would even hold it?
Yeah, we had to buy one.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's another $600-700 probably for a freezer. So, there's an expense to do that, and some people are just living so close to the edge,
Mhm.
they don't have $3,500 to go buy half a beef.
What did I pay on my phone's up there? I can't look. I can't remember. It was not $3,500 though,
So, right
because it was
now
about a year, a little over a year ago, we bought our last half cow.
yeah, the, prices have gotten way out of hand.
Yeah. I wanna say it was about 1,500.
Those 1,600-pound steers right now are worth about $4,500.
Oh, wow.
It's like a used car.
I might not be I might not be buying a half a cow anytime soon at those prices. That's a lot. I had no idea they'd gone up that
Yep,
much.
yep. And so, it's a great idea, and I think it's better for people's health. There's just some hindrances to be able to get that done, like your income, your how much cash you
Yeah.
have, and freezer space, and
Might have to get a quarter this year.
and eat less.
Yeah, smaller meals. Well,
Right, right.
it's better for me
Well,
anyway.
and we go out and eat, and my kids know better, since I'm in the beef world, they know better than to order anything but beef. Um, but then you look at the prices on the menu, and it's crazy too, right?
Mhm. Well, yeah, hamburgers have gone way up. Hamburger. We were somewhere and it was like $19 for a hamburger.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
$19 for
Yeah.
a hamburger.
Yep.
Almost died. Grimm Brothers has decent prices on hamburgers, though. If
Oh,
you're in Loveland, Grimm Brothers has decent prices on hamburgers.
Well, we always just eat we have I probably have 200 pounds of hamburger at the house right now.
Yeah, we got rid of all ours. We were feeding it to the dogs because we
Hamburger meat?
do. Yeah, because they were doing. We feed them homemade food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we fed them all of our leftover. We had so much ground beef from that cow,
Right.
so we got rid of all the. We don't have any more ground beef. It's all gone now.
Yeah. We eat a lot of ground beef,
But
especially when the kids were at home. We had a lot of hamburgers and stuff.
yeah, yeah, it's always a good idea. All right, with you with all of these careers, all of them, rancher and the extension agent, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Extension agent and professor and witness and all the things. So what is the common thread that kind of weaves all of this together?
I think the common thread has been pretty much agricultural some way, and it's been mostly cows that have kind of worked through all that.
So the big moo cow,
The big cows. Yep.
the big moo
Yep.
cow. All right.
I
Well,
have a big cowhide on my wall behind my desk, so I remember my roots and where I come from.
that's pretty cool.
What the one other thing I'd like to I wanted to bring up too, just in case your listeners are interested, there's a lot of stuff going on right now that you hear in the media about, oh, cow numbers at an all-time low. We're going to run out of beef in the United States. It's horrible, and that's why the price is so high. That is all true numerically, but what the story they're not telling is we're down on cow numbers, but the industry and has done a really good job on feeding and genetics that we're still producing the same amount of beef.
Interesting. So the volume of beef hasn't changed.
Volume of beef has not changed.
Just the number of cows has
Number of
changed.
cows has changed and has gone down, which needs to be. We should continue to strive for that as an industry, and that's one of the things I'm really passionate about and what I'm trying to help get done now, because I think there's so much we don't know metabolically about cows that we've just never paid attention
Mhm.
before. That and I've got several projects. That's one of the great thing about this company. When I was at the university, you had to go out and get a grant and beg somebody for money, hope they gave it to you. But this company, if I come up with a good enough project and I can sell them on the benefits to the company, then they'll fund it. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different research projects going on in the US right now, and they all center around this idea I have of epigenetic effects.
Epigenetic.
So little things that happen, and I'm focusing more in utero. So let's take this company, and we talk about amino acids. Is what this company does primarily. So is there a trigger genetically in utero that if the cow is short on some amino acids, does that trigger genetics in that fetus or even in that oocyte that's about to divide chromosomes to go in when it goes from diploid to haploid before fertilization? Is there something that triggers those genes to say, you know what, turn this, and this off because methionine is limited and will likely be limited when you're born?
And what's methionine?
It's an amino acid.
An amino acid.
Usually
Okay.
the first limiting amino acid,
Okay.
the one that's usually short. So does that affect that animal's lifetime performance? Because those genes get turned off. 'Cause we think of genetics as a huge, complex, crazy to understand. It's really just like your husband Tom works with computers, on or off. Genes are either on or they're off. They're either expressed or they're not expressed. It's just one or the other.
Just a switch.
And so if we turn off some genes, and with methionine being an amino acid, it would probably be around protein accretion and accretion efficiency, so building muscle. But if we turn those off in utero, that animal never makes that much muscle. And so we're decreasing that animal's efficiency later in life. And so if it's a female, does she perpetuate those off genes to all of her offspring? And if it's a cow, she might have 8 to 10 offspring go into the system. So are there things we can do to turn genes on and off nutritionally or
Mhm.
from a management perspective, whether that's grass, whether that's feed that we put in, we supplement, whatever? Can we start to trigger some of those things on and off, probably on most of them, to be better production and produce more beef more efficiently with the same amount of food?
So would you wanna turn that off, that gene, the
It would
muscle
depend on the
gene?
genes. No, we would want to turn that on.
Okay, good, 'cause I was
Yeah.
really worried about a cow without muscles. I was like,
No,
"How is it gonna
we
walk?"
would want those on, right?
Yeah,
But from a protein accretion and building muscle for people to eat, the more muscle you can make with the same inputs,
the better.
yeah,
Yeah,
the more efficiency
that's
you
why I was
have.
confused for a minute. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Please tell
So
me
you
you're
could
not turning on that
continue
muscle
to
gene."
back down those cow numbers and still have the same amount of beef in the US. Demand has stayed strong for beef throughout the Q1. So we'll see as it keeps prices are staying high.
So that's the next thing you're working on?
That's my current big
That's
push.
what you're
Yeah.
working on right
Yeah.
now? You have to let me know how that goes.
Yeah. We'll see.
That's pretty cool.
Preliminary is that we can.
So have you started testing this already?
We just harvested some cattle a couple weeks ago and had a significant increase in carcass weight.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's kind of huge.
we're trying to refine some of that and looking at how can we, because truthfully, big pharma has all these products that they do with cattle and that I don't agree with. We have hormone implants, we have beta agonists, we have all these things that we give
Beta
to cattle.
agonist. What's a
That's
beta
a whole nother
agonist? That's a
story.
whole.
But it's ways to make cattle grow faster and gain weight in less time, to make it more efficient, less cost, but the price still stays the same. Nobody backs off the cost of meat, right? So,
Mhm.
but it allows people in the middle here, especially feedlots, to make more money. So if we can, I would rather do it naturally with amino acids versus all these other compounds.
I'm all about the natural. As long as we can do it humanely. Now you've got me worried about the humaneness of some of this
They don't.
natural
No,
stuff.
they're all fine. They don't. Well, some of
Well,
the things, right?
yeah, right.
But in this cow deal with amino acids and these just epigenetic effects.
No, that one sounds really good.
Yeah,
But the antibiotics and the poor little cow suffering has me a little worried about the cow.
it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, yeah, so be careful with your labels and what you, but it's an unintended consequence. Is
Right.
there anything wrong with buying organic meat? Absolutely not, but do people, and it comes back to your principles, right? I mean, I would never do that to an animal. I
Right.
would never let them suffer, I mean,
So we need our farmers to
but you have people
buck up with their principles and not let the cow suffer.
people that are in the system that are just that may not be as principled, and
Right. So what's one thing you wanna leave everybody with? Other than marry well and stay married and have lots of kids?
that the guys in the beef industry are not bad guys. I think a lot of times, and especially ranchers on the cow-calf side, get painted that way, that they're just not good environmentalists, and just to that doesn't even make sense, because without that environment, they can't be in business. So they absolutely have to take care of that.
Yep. That is a good thing to leave everybody with.
I
Well,
know, right?
thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate
Thanks for
it
having
so
me.
much.
Appreciate it.
Say bye. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Bye. You are a good sport. Thank you. You are.
I wasn't very funny because I have all this time.
You were not as funny as I wanted you to be.
I know, but we had to have all this technical stuff.